What is going on, Sneaky Nation? Sneaky P here with my thoughts and reactions to the San Francisco 49ers Week 1 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As you guys know, I'm a diehard Niners fan, and after some of the games this year, I think I might just make some videos talking about my thoughts on it all. And if you guys like it, I could do it every week. You know, obviously I'm going to be focusing on the 49ers, but I'm also going to touch base on the other team as well, in this case, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. This was a big win for the 49ers, 31-17 over Tampa Bay. They have really struggled in road games in recent seasons. They've also struggled winning on the East Coast in general over a long period of time. And to pick up a victory here is absolutely huge. However, this was not a great victory. You know, there were a lot of issues that if the 49ers were making these mistakes against a better team, it would have come back to haunt them. They caught a break going up against Tampa Bay, who were also making a lot of mistakes here. And the defense was ultimately able to bail the 49ers out, but it was not a pretty win. A win's a win. You got to be excited about it, and it's definitely a great way to start off the season, but there's a lot of stuff this team's going to have to clean up if they would like to have success moving forward. So we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly today. We're going to get into it all, and I think we're going to start off talking about the ugly, which is team discipline. Overall, the team discipline for the 49ers was atrocious. Pretty much every single big play the 49ers had on offense outside of a 39-yard touchdown pass to Richie James Jr., every play they had was called back. Every big play. I mean, it was nonstop. If you saw the 49ers walking into the end zone, it was probably a flag on the play. And some of these flags, you know, maybe it was like a holding call that helped the touchdown happen. Probably in the Raheem Mostert case, actually affected the play. But then there were just mistakes that just cost the team a touchdown for no reason, like Mike McGlinchey not lining up on the line of scrimmage. I mean, stuff like that didn't affect the play, and it cost the 49ers a touchdown. You cannot be doing that at this stage. And to see that many mistakes is just a little bit worrisome, especially as this is a team that has struggled with penalties in the past. And, you know, a lot of that you could attribute to the 49ers just being injured, and a lot of backups were getting snaps in the last two seasons. Whereas this year we're pretty healthy, so to see our starters just continuously make mistakes over and over and over every time the offense had any kind of rhythm, you know, it's a drive killer. You know, it took away 3 touchdowns on the game for the 49ers. That is massive. And even the ones that didn't result in taking away touchdowns, I mean, you know, they'd get a big play down the field, get a holding call, and all of a sudden it's 1st and 20. And digging out of that hole is not an easy thing to do, especially on the road. And the 49ers are going to have to find a way to clean this up. If they can't clean up their penalties, they are going to lose these games moving forward. They got a little bit lucky as Tampa Bay was doing something very similar. They had 2 touchdowns taken back as well, and they were making a lot of mistakes too. So ultimately it kind of, you know, canceled each other out a little bit. But if the 49ers hope to win any other games in the future, they cannot be pulling stunts like this, like they did yesterday. So anyway, moving on to the bad. We've talked about the ugly. That was really the only ugly, but there was a lot of bad too. And I'm going to start off with the 49ers offense. It just was not good. Jimmy Garoppolo, 18-27, 166 yards, 1 touchdown, and that pick 6. But that pick 6 was bad. And I have been saying for a while, I have a lot of faith in Jimmy Garoppolo. However, he does not have a lot of experience actually playing games. You know, he was on the bench behind Brady. Then he comes and plays just the final, 5 weeks for San Francisco. And then last year he played 3 games before getting hurt. For how long he's been in the NFL, he does not have much experience. And experience is very key because Jimmy Garoppolo has had a habit of making bad decisions and bad throws. He has shown the ability that he could potentially be a great quarterback in this league, but he's also shown that he struggles with decision making. Now, some guys just never get better with their decision making. They don't. But some guys, as they play more, you know, they get more experience. They figure out what they can and cannot do. That's my hope for Garoppolo. And that was really what I was looking forward to last season, was him kind of getting that experience. Make your mistakes then when we don't have that great of a team. And then hopefully this year he would be better. But because he missed all of that last season, I'm kind of expecting a lot of mistakes from Jimmy Garoppolo this year. And luckily, it did not come back to haunt the 49ers in this game, but that pick six was bad. He had a clean pocket. He wasn't really under pressure, and it was just a throw that Vernon Hargreaves had the easiest pick six ever on. And Jimmy Garoppolo's got to find a way to learn on the go here, because the 49ers all of a sudden have some talent. They're not a great team yet, but they're a team that can win a lot of games, but he's going to have to clean up his decision-making in order for them to do so. Overall, though, the issue was once Jimmy Garoppolo threw that pick six, it kind of felt like Kyle Shanahan lost a lot of faith in him. I am a big Shanahan fan. I know a lot of 49er fans have lost patience with him after 2 losing seasons, but I feel very confident that the 49ers have one of the very best coaches in the NFL right now. And I can look at Kyle Shanahan and just excuse that poor record over his first 2 seasons here, because I've seen the teams that he has had. He has not had good teams at all. Last year, the team was a little bit better talent-wise. The first year was just awful. Last year was a little bit better, but then everybody was hurt. At one point, every player on the offense outside of Juice was on the injury report. I mean, and then the defense, the secondary was banged up into oblivion as well. There were just so many injuries last year, I can't really blame Shanahan for that. And despite all the injuries, he got the offense moving consistently. He was very good at that, and I feel very confident with Shanahan. However, this was probably the worst game I feel like I have seen from Shanahan since joining the 49ers. Once Garoppolo threw that interception, he just seemed to lose confidence in Garoppolo. He kept trying to force the run game to work, and it just was not happening, which is kind of odd because this 49ers team was very good at running the ball last year. They have the same offensive line. Richburg was a little bit hurt in this one, but that run game could not get anything going at all. And it seemed like the 49ers were constantly running it on first down and maybe go for a yard or two. And then they'd try to run it again on second down, and then they'd lose a yard or two. And then all of a sudden it's 3rd and long. And even then, they just had Jimmy Garoppolo playing super conservative. He threw like a 3-yard plat pass or something like that. And it just resulted in a lot of punts and missed opportunities. And it just kind of seemed like the team was just too afraid. I say a lot of punts. They really didn't punt the ball that much. But it just kind of seemed like the team was playing scared a little bit, which I'm not used to seeing from Kyle Shanahan. I mean, even when Nick Mullins kind of came in last year in that Raiders game, I mean, he just kind of let Nick Mullins go, and I didn't really see that today. And I don't know if that's lack of faith in Jimmy Garoppolo or what, but something wasn't really right with the offense. So, sticking with the bad, the offensive line was kind of hit and miss. They were pretty good in pass protection. I really didn't see Jimmy Garoppolo under pressure a whole lot. I know he got sacked once. I'm sure there were a few other plays where he was under pressure, but for the most part, it kind of felt like he was throwing from a pretty clean pocket. So the pass protection was very good. The run blocking, though, was just not there. I mean, Matt Breida, he's going to find a hole if it's there. He proved that last year. He's a very good running back. And there was just nothing for him on numerous plays. Mostert came in towards the end and made a few runs on the outside, which were really nice. But overall, that run blocking for the 49ers just was not there today. And I think that ultimately is what really stalled this offense, because the 49ers, they used their run game to kind of open up their pass game. And when that run game was just kind of shut down, it didn't really happen. They only averaged 3.1 yards per carry. There were actually 2 kneel downs at the end of the game that affects that a little bit, but it wasn't good for the most part. And that's something the 49ers are going to have to clean up going into week 2. They were a very good run blocking unit last year, so I'm hoping, it was just one of those games, one of those off games for the most part. But if they can get that run offense going, I really think it's going to open up the pass game a little bit more, and we'll see Shanahan kind of let Jimmy Garoppolo make some plays then. But a super conservative offense in week 1, I didn't fully understand it. And the other thing that really hurt is the penalties, man. If you go from 1st and 10 to a big play down the field that's just called back on a penalty, and all of a sudden you're facing 1st and 20 on the road, that's a difficult situation to overcome. And time again, it just kind of seemed to haunt the 49ers there. So not a great outing by the 49ers offense, but ultimately they did enough to get the win. That was nice. More of the bad, though, I got to talk about the receivers a little bit. The big question is, which receiver is going to step up? Is anybody going to help George Kittle this year? And after 1 week, the answer is no. Richie James had 1 catch that went for a touchdown. It was a great play, 39 yards. But other than that, you really didn't see the receivers step up. Deebo Samuel played more snaps than any other receiver for the 49ers. He had 3 catches, but only 17 yards there. You know, not great. Marquise Goodwin, 1 catch, 7 yards. Kendrick Bourne, 1 catch, 9 yards. Dante Pettis, 1 catch, 7 yards. I mean, they've got to start getting some kind of production from their wide receivers if they are going to want to take the next step. They've invested some picks in it recently. You know, Jalen Hurd was out this game, so we'll have to see what he can do. Trent Taylor was out this game. He had a killer camp. We'll have to see what he can do when he comes back. But, I mean, Deebo Samuel and Dante Pettis are second-round picks. Dante Pettis especially, being in his second year, you're going to need to see more kind of production from him. I know he didn't have a great camp, and apparently he got banged up in this game a little bit, which is why his snap count was low. But he played 2 snaps. He got a catch for 7 yards and a penalty. And you got to stop having those penalties at this stage. They didn't get a lot of help from Jimmy Garoppolo. He wasn't super accurate on some of these passes, but he threw a lot of catchable balls. They weren't good. They weren't well thrown balls, but they were catchable balls that the receivers were able to get their hands on. I know Kendrick Bourne had one off his hands. That one was really high, though. That one would have been very difficult. But you'd still like to see the guy come down with it. But that was a tough catch. Marquise Goodwin had a catch that was thrown a little bit behind him that would have gone for a touchdown probably. But even though that was a little bit behind him, that's just a catch he has to make. And I'm starting to worry Marquise Goodwin might have been that one-hit wonder. You know what I mean? He had that killer season his first year here. Last year, he was just invisible most of the season. And he had a lot of personal stuff going on that could kind of excuse it. You can understand, you know, if he's in a dark place from things happening at his house, man, I can't imagine the things he went through in trying to play the game. So I can understand that, but to kind of come out with a dud in week 1 here is a little bit concerning when he really didn't have much of a resume prior to coming to San Francisco either. So that's something to keep an eye on. We really need a wide receiver to step up. We have to. And we didn't see that happen in week 1. But again, Trent Taylor is supposed to be like the best player we had throughout camp. And then Jalen Hurd, who played pretty much 1 preseason game before getting hurt. He got hurt like early on in the second one, I think. And he had 2 touchdowns in that preseason game. So maybe once Hurd comes back from injury, once Taylor comes back, that's just going to help out everybody. And again, getting that run game going is really going to be key for the passing game as well. But a disappointing outing from our wide receivers. The last bad that I think I really need to talk about, well, really 2. The 49ers run defense, man, it was not good. And with so many first-round picks on this defensive line, and even the guys that aren't first-round picks are talented, and they've proven they can play in the NFL, I really expected their defensive line to stop the run a little bit more, especially, you know, Ronald Jones did not have a good rookie season, but he looked absolutely amazing yesterday. He made so many plays. He had an 18-yard reception out of the backfield. It was 3rd down and 17, and the 49ers gave up a first down, which you just cannot do at this level. If you have them on 3rd and long like that, I mean, giving up a first down is just bad. They had 7 people deep in coverage, too, and they still gave it up. Missed tackles. But all throughout the game, Ronald Jones was just forcing missed tackles, man. He made some big-time plays. It's going to be interesting to see what he could do this year because yesterday, he looked the part. He absolutely looked the part. And 49ers run defense, man, they've got to step up. But overall, with that, I do feel like the 49ers run defense will be better moving forward. I think there's just too much talent. I'm chalking this one up to a bad game. I'm not super concerned about it, but it is something worth keeping an eye on. The last bad that I will talk about, and I say bad, but it wasn't bad. It was just not very good, and that's Richard Sherman. He had that pick 6, which was great, but that was really a poorly passed ball by Jameis Winston while under pressure. It was a pretty easy interception for Richard Sherman there. But he got beat a few times throughout the game, and there were a few plays that he wasn't beat on, but he got a penalty on. And even that final Bucs play of the game where they hurled it down the field, there was offensive pass interference on Mike Evans as well. But they could have flagged Richard Sherman too. I think it was a good no call ultimately, just simply based on, one, the game was over at that point pretty much. But also because Mike Evans was clearly pushing off on Sherman. But Sherman didn't turn his head around. He just wasn't really playing the ball. He was just kind of more playing Mike Evans. And we saw that same thing happen on the touchdown that was caught by Chris Godwin. Sherman was playing the receiver. He wasn't looking for the ball at all. and it allowed the receiver to make the play. And he got flagged for a penalty on that play. Godwin just caught it, so it didn't really matter either way. But not a good game by Richard Sherman. But as I say that, you got to look at it. Chris Godwin had 3 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown. Mike Evans had 2 catches for 28 yards. Ultimately, the San Francisco 49ers secondary did a great job. But there were a few things I'd like to see Richard Sherman clean up, and I actually think he will. He played great last season. He's even healthier this year, so I do expect this just to kind of be a bad game. I'm not super worried about it, but with him getting a little bit up there in age, it is something worth looking at. So that's it for the bad, though. Let's go ahead and talk about the good. And 49ers defense, man. The 49ers defense was outstanding. Last year, the biggest issue with the defense, everybody was bashing the secondary, but the biggest issue with the defense was outside of DeForest Buckner, we had no pass rush. And considering DeForest Buckner plays inside, he'd rush up the middle, and the quarterbacks would just scramble to the outside and, make a play. And so the 49ers tried to address that this season by bringing in Dee Ford and Nick Bosa. And those 2 players were game changers here. I was shocked to see how good they were, especially considering Nick Bosa is still a little bit injured. I think he's fine for the most part. I don't think it's significant at this point. But there were a few times you could see where Jameis Winston kind of juked him. And I don't know that would happen necessarily to Nick Bosa if he had a fully healthy ankle. But at the same time, Jameis Winston's just good at avoiding that initial sack anyway. But ultimately, to see this defense step up the way they did, I mean, I really felt like Dee Ford and Nick Bosa were just constantly in Jameis Winston's face. Eric Armstead as well was actually doing pretty good at getting pressure on the quarterback, and that forced Jameis Winston into some bad throws. His 2 interceptions, or 2 of his interceptions, were because of pressure. And the 3rd interception was just off of O.J. Howard's hands. But the other 2 were because of pressure. And then there were 2 more plays that the 49ers should have had interceptions on that were dropped. One by Quan Alexander, in which case, again, Winston was getting pressured and made a panic throw. And Quan Alexander just dropped that, man. He cannot be dropping that. That could have been a pick 6. And then late in the game, I don't remember how much pressure Winston was under on this throw in particular, but there was another play where Tarvarius Moore should have had an interception. It was a 4th down play. The 49ers got the turnover on downs anyway, but that could have been a pick 6 as well. And for a team that had 2 interceptions all of last season, and a lot of that, there was no pass rush really, to kind of see the pressure actively get to a quarterback like that and force him into some panic throws, which in turn our defense was able to capitalize and make some big plays. That was great to see. So Dee Ford, Nick Bosa, outstanding. Eric Armstead was good, like I said. DeForest Buckner had a tackle for loss. He didn't really stand out a ton, but he's facing double teams a lot, and he's just a threat anyway. And then 2 other players I would really like to talk about in this game standing out on the defense. Fred Warner forced 2 fumbles in this game, one of which was recovered by Ronald Blair. He was just all over the field, really doing a great job, but punching the ball free twice was a great thing to see from a young linebacker there. And then the other player that really stood out to me is Akella Witherspoon, who I have been sticking by his side. Last year, he got bashed relentlessly for just really not having a good year, mostly to start the season. But if you guys remember, he was injured last year. He was pretty much playing on one leg to start the year. And as the season went on, he got a little bit healthier. He really started to play pretty good. He was locked down yesterday. He was just amazing, man. I saw them, challenge him a few times, whether it have been Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. 2 difficult matchups, man. 2 good wide receivers. And Witherspoon was just on top of it. He did have a pick 6. That was mostly Nick Bosa and Dee Ford, though Jameis Winston kind of threw it right to him. It was pretty much the easiest interception ever. But even if you take away that pick 6, he still had an outstanding game. Witherspoon was making some plays, and that was great to see. 3 other good players, really. Mark Nzocha, I forget how to say it. He had a great game. Came in for Quan Alexander, who got ejected early, which was not great to see, by the way. He had an interception, but on special teams, he also blocked a punt. So good impact play for a guy that was supposed to be a backup. Obviously, he's still going to be getting some snaps throughout the season, but to see him make a big impact was definitely a good thing to see. George Kittle, he's the same George Kittle we saw last year. 8 catches, only 54 yards again. 49ers were playing a super conservative offense, and he actually had 2 touchdowns that were called back. Both touchdowns he looked really good on, one of which he broke a nice tackle from the safety. So George Kittle's the same George Kittle. I wish those touchdowns weren't called back, but he was outstanding with 8 catches, and this one just needs help from a wide receiver, man. Otherwise, teams are going to start to focus more on him as we go forward. And then the other good, I would say, is probably Robbie Gould, man. 3 of 4. His one miss was like from 57 yards, and it was off the crossbar. Otherwise, though, I mean, he's just as good as ever. Very happy with him. So, you know, there were some good takeaways from this game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There were a lot of things the 49ers are going to need to clean up on. Third down defense, I know, again, giving up a 3rd and 17 is just not good. They gave up a few other 3rd and longs as well, which was not a great thing to see. Offense, got to stop getting these silly penalties, man. Sometimes penalties are going to happen. It's a part of the game. But when you're constantly wiping every single big play you have out, that's an issue. You cannot be doing that. They've got to clean that up. And then hopefully the 49ers can get this run game going a little bit more next week. But overall, a win is a win. You got to be happy with it. The 49ers showed some toughness in this game. And I'm hoping they can kind of clean up some of these mistakes and have a good outing in week 2 against the Bengals. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Let me know if you guys like this kind of video, if it's something you guys would like to see more of. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys next time. Later.